What's going on YouTube? It's TH back again with another video, and today bringing you part 2 of our adding one legend to all 32 NFL teams. Yesterday was the AFC video. Today we do all 16 NFC teams. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Be sure to hit that like button if you do. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and want to see more fun football content like this. And of course, let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Whether or not your favorite team's in this video, let me hear where you think I was right, where I was wrong, and maybe what legends you would swap out for a given team. And especially if your favorite team is in this video, let me hear who your favorite player is in that team's history. And then of course, would you add them to the roster, or do you have a bone to pick with maybe who I picked to add to your roster and maybe what you would change up? Let me hear your thoughts. There's really no wrong answer here. So let's have some fun conversations down below. So to go over the rules real quick, I am focusing on players that I primarily think of as, players of that franchise. So like Deion Sanders is not going to be in here, but like the Cowboys are immediately what comes to mind for me and Deion, right? We'll talk about Michael Vick later on, and there's a couple teams that come to mind, but certainly the one that I signed him to was like the number one team that immediately pops in my mind when I think about Michael Vick. And also, I'm limiting myself to players who retired at least 5 years ago. So they had to retire by 2018. I'm not doing anything more recent, and we are talking about retired players. I'm not bringing Jamal Adams back onto a current roster, or changing a player from their new destination back to their old team where they were in their heydays or whatever. And then the last note here, I am taking these players and we're just going to say that we get the prime version of them, like the best of Michael Irvin, the best of Lawrence Taylor. So let us then segue into the NFC East. Cowboys, honestly, I'd be happy with any of the 90s Cowboys. Troy Aikman, maybe you could tell me he's better than Dak. Larry Allen, keep a strength of strength, right? Emmitt Smith partnered up with Tony Pollard could be a lot of fun. But I decided to go Michael Irvin just because he feels like the Hall of Fame version of Michael Gallup. And I love the idea of keeping CeeDee Lamb in the slot. And I'm glad that Dallas has done a lot to keep that the place that he plays from, because I think that's where he's most efficient. So to have Michael Irvin and Brandon Cooks on the outside, then CeeDee Lamb in the slot, oh my God, that wide receiver room. If Dak can't win at least a playoff game, honestly should be aiming for 2. Then quarterback is a problem here. So would love to see Hall of Fame version of Michael Gallup essentially on that roster. Really rounds out that wide receiver room. But again, any of the 90s Cowboys, I'm not mad about. Honestly, if you think Roger Staubach's the best quarterback in Cowboys history and that's a big enough upgrade over Dak, again, I'm not going to be mad about that either. Then we get to the Giants. Lawrence Taylor's, he's probably the best player in franchise history. I think most Giants fans would tell you that. Might be the best defensive player in NFL history as well. Might be the best pass rusher in NFL history. But also at a time when the Giants and off-ball linebackers then in a 3-4 would drop into, outside linebackers in a 3-4 scheme would drop into coverage, which Wink Martindale does ask his off-ball or his 3-4, outside linebackers to do from time to time. So he'd be a really good scheme fit while also giving this team a guaranteed stud there on the edge, right? Because like Azeez Ojulari, often injured, and when he's playing, he's like, meh. And then Kayvon Thibodeaux, a little slow to start last year. I still believe in the potential, but still no guarantee that he fully hits that. And maybe he gets that much better if you were to have like a Lawrence Taylor, literally a Lawrence Taylor on the other side. And then his assignments get that much easier because he's seeing one-on-ones and the attention's being focused on Lawrence Taylor. So would love to see this type of dude added to that Giants defense. So man, if only we could take out prime Lawrence Taylor and put him on this Giants roster. I know Wink Martindale would be super excited about that and make Kayvon Thibodeaux that much better. So yeah, easy one there for the Giants. Eagles, couple of different names that were in contention here, but I decided to go with Weapon X, Brian Dawkins. Whether he's playing free safety, because I know we all think of Brian Dawkins for the boom that he could lay, but the dude had range. The dude could play over the top, and he created a lot of turnovers too through the air. So whether he's your Reed Blankenship insurance / upgrade, because Blankenship was good, but smaller sample size, day 3 pick, no guarantee that he is that legit this upcoming season, or he is your hey, he's Sidney Brown but can be a better tackler, or he's just Terrell Edmonds but better across the board. Either way you spin it, free safety, strong safety, Brian Dawkins would be an awesome weapon to that secondary, and they call him Weapon X for a reason. Really, the big question mark would be does Brian Dawkins' game translate well enough to the NFL level nowadays? With how much they're protecting receivers and offense in general, would Brian Dawkins hit his way out of this league? Potentially, but I think he'd be able to adapt. So let's go ahead and add him to the secondary in Philly. And then the Commanders, this was a tough one, and I'm blocking a little bit, apologies, but whether it's slinging Sammy Ball or Sonny Jurgensen, I'm fine with either one. I decided to go with Sonny Jurgensen because he's got that clip of him throwing a behind the back pass, and somebody's going to give credit to Patrick Mahomes for that, so want to have Sonny Jurgensen get his due where he can. But, I just look at that roster all in all, and quarterback's definitely the spot where it's if I could add a legend to it, that moves the needle the most. Because, I'm not saying Sam Howell can't be good, but, even if I thought 5th round was too late, he was still a quarterback in one of the weakest quarterback classes we've seen over the last half decade to a decade. So that's not a great indicator for what he might end up being. And he fell in that class. bit of a yikes. But I still believe in Sam Howell, but Sonny Jurgensen's a franchise legend, Hall of Famer, right? Like, do I worry about where his game might translate from then to now? Yeah, sure. But we're talking about dragging legends out of their prime into the current NFL landscape. So we're already stretching the disbelief pretty far. So let's just go ahead and Sonny Jurgensen would, tame the waters, give Washington this franchise quarterback that they haven't had in a long time. Probably since Sonny Jurgensen, honestly. So, yeah, and then if Washington got a franchise quarterback, they'd be a whole lot of fun to watch and make them legitimate playoff contenders and maybe even more than that. All right, we get to the NFC South. We talked about Michael Vick. Yeah, I think of him with both the Falcons and the Eagles, but definitely the Falcons. He's on the cover of Madden when he's in Atlanta, right? And like him and that Arthur Smith run scheme, oh my word, dude. The fun that Arthur Smith would have with Michael Vick in the backfield would be crazy. And then also think about it as like a defensive end. If I'm reading or if I'm looking at a read option and my options are to key on Michael Vick or to focus on Bijan Robinson, it's a lose-lose proposition because the other, no matter who I focus on, the other one's getting the ball, and I'm not excited about that. So that's a backfield I want to see. And also, Vick in Atlanta was probably almost assuredly less accurate than what he was in Philadelphia. I think most people would come to a consensus and agree that that is the case. But if you were to drop on this current Falcons roster, he's got 6'5" Drake London, 6'5" Kyle Pitt, 6'4" Matt Collins. He's got big body and big catch radius weapons around him to kind of, lighten the blow of maybe his inaccuracies, while again putting him in an offense that's going to take advantage of what he can do as a runner and give him a great backfield partner in Bijan Robinson. Yeah, I kind of need to see this right now. I need to pull out prime Michael Vick and see what he could do in that Arthur Smith offense right here, right now. Carolina, they desperately need a number one wide receiver. The best wide receiver in franchise history is Steve Smith Sr., so this was another super easy one. They have Adam Thielen, who I think should play in the slot, but Steve Smith was just as good as an outside wide receiver as he was as a slot guy, despite being 5'9" and like 180 pounds or whatever Steve Smith Sr. was. He was just a dog. Route runner that can win at all three levels. Great contested catch guy. Spectacular catchability. Freak after the catch. Also a great punt returner. Again, best wide receiver in franchise history. They need a number one wide receiver. So if I'm dragging a legend to current times, it's Steve Smith Sr. Saints, Ricky Jackson, a couple of names that I could have gone with here. I kind of thought back to like those early Sean Payton days back when I first started watching football, like Marquez Colston. Like, could we just have him be Michael Thomas year in and year out, essentially? Thought about it, but Ricky Jackson is one of the best Saints of all time. And if you can take that three-man rotation, which features two young players that we don't really know what they are, and Peyton Turner and Isaiah Foskey, and an aging Cam Jordan, and then make that a four-man rotation with one of the best players in franchise history, rotating it with Cam Jordan, and then you let young guys play on the other side and fight out who's going to become the more the bigger presence in the field, who gets the lion's share of those snaps between Foskey and Turner. Man, now that defensive line takes another step looking like Philadelphia, where New Orleans already prioritized defensive line depth, but adding Ricky Jackson only makes you that much deeper, while also giving you a dude who could be a Cam Jordan replacement, but also just like a bona fide 10-plus sack a year type of dude, and a guy who led the NFL like a handful of times and forced fumbles too. So turnover creator as well. So that's a lot of fun to think about with that Saints defense as well. The Bucs, I really thought about Derek Brooks here, either as a Devin White replacement or as the quote-unquote heir apparent to Levante David. It's kind of funny to say that with a guy who played so long ago. But either way you spin it, I'd be into that. But I decided to go Leroy Selman. At the time of him retiring, I'm pretty sure he was the NFL leader in career sacks. And I think Reggie White's the only guy who got to 100 career sacks at a quicker pace than Leroy Selman, at least to the point where he retired. Maybe that's changed in modern times. But yeah, Leroy Selman's got a couple of stats that'll make you be like, whoa, this guy was that good? Because not a name that you hear all that often, because those Bucs teams just weren't all that special. So he was a good player, a really good player on a mediocre team, we'll say it. But I look at the Bucs' current roster and it's like Joe Tryon-Shink I'm excited about in year 3. But Shaq Barrett only getting older, coming off a major injury. Is he going to be the same that he was last year, let alone 3 years ago when the team won a Super Bowl? The answer is probably no. So, yeah, a couple of names I thought about, all kind of on the defensive side, which kind of sucks. Not a great quarterback I can cherry pick here, but Leroy Selman would certainly go a long way to boosting that edge group. Cardinals, again, I'm not taking Pat Pete off the Steelers roster and adding him into the prime, which that would be interesting, though, if I did make that rule. Could go Larry Fitz, but they already have DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown, so I feel like they got enough wide receivers. You could play Larry Fitz in the slot there and then have just an insane trio. Yeah, I'm not mad about it. So if you want Larry Fitz here, I totally get it. I just look at that secondary and it's just like who after who after who. Like I feel like an owl just looking at our lads in their secondary, especially after or whenever they do trade Budda Baker. So Aeneas Williams, underrated corner for his time, turnover machine. I actually think it would be a really interesting fit in Jonathan Gannon's defense, where they're going to play a lot of cover 1 man and a lot of cover 4 zone. So I actually think he'd be a really good scheme fit. And again, he would just give him a guy to that secondary when they desperately need someone, not only to be like a number 1 shutdown dude, but someone who can generate some of those turnovers. So yeah, Aeneas Williams may not be the name that a lot of people would go with, but he would go a long way to improving that secondary big time. The Rams, I went with Jack Youngblood. Honorable mention to Deacon Jones. This comes down to how you feel about him in the head slap with it, because obviously it's not allowed anymore. Would he still be that same dude? Maybe, maybe not. That's not for me to tell. It's kind of hard to gauge there. So if you think that taking away the head slap, Deacon Jones is still one of the best pass rushers of all time, then cool, let's make this Deacon Jones. But because I didn't have a clear-cut answer on that, I tried to go with Jack Youngblood, who also, by the way, had to go with Jack Youngblood because he's like first team or first ballot Hall of Fame NFL names list. Like that Jack Youngblood, are you kidding me? Yeah, I want that dude on my roster immediately. But inside-out flexibility, I think you probably play inside on early downs, in your quote-unquote base, and then as you get to nickel, maybe he's lining up on the edge and going one-on-one with tackles, but trying to give Aaron Donald some reinforcements. The Rams desperately need pass rush. Youngblood, one of the best pass rushers they have in franchise history, but they have a few names. Kind of thought about some of the wide receivers too. Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce as like a number 2 to Cooper Kupp. That could be fun, but felt like that defensive line needed some reinforcements, so let's go with Jack Youngblood. And again, the name alone, I mean, gotta consider him for that alone. 49ers, I mean, this would be Hall of Fame Brock Purdy, right? Like Joe Montana, like mobile enough, strong enough arm, good decision maker, very accurate. I mean, this is just like Brock Purdy just morphed into a Hall of Famer, right? And also, like, there's plenty of people who would argue like Tom Brady is the best resume of any quarterback of all time, and Joe Montana has is the second best. 5 for 5 in Super Bowls. It's like a 13-2 interception to touchdown ratio, insane. And he's called Joe Cool for a reason. It came up time and time again, and a huge moment for the 49ers. And I also think about like, he played in a time where Bill Walsh and that West Coast offense was taking the league by storm. And I mean, Kyle Shanahan, I mean, like it really started with Kyle Shanahan's dad, but since that time, since Kyle really became a head coach, it felt like his disciples have started to slowly but surely take over the league, right? Like you get McDaniels, you get your McVays, and then his disciples are the LaFleurs, but they're all kind of roots back to the Shanahan offense. And a lot of those points are still the same, right? Like you don't see the 49ers running this 4 vertical based offense, right? Like it's play action, motion, so some of the things that are a little different from the West Coast offense, but those points aside, once the ball is like snapped, you're looking underneath. You're looking to get the ball out quick into playmakers' hands. Let them do the dirty work. You're looking for slants. You're looking for crossers. Looking at intermediate parts of the field. You're not taking those deep shots time and time again. Instead, it's more underneath and intermediate oriented. So I actually think Joe Montana and a Kyle Shanahan offense would have a pretty easy learning curve, considering it's kind of the NFL modern equivalent to what Bill Walsh and that West Coast offense looked like. So I actually think he'd be able to pick up that offense really, really quick. And with the weapons that they have currently, I mean, it'd be hard to argue that San Francisco wouldn't be the best offense in the NFL. If not one, they'd certainly be top 3. Seahawks, I'll go with Steve Hutchinson. I kind of made the same point about the Raiders yesterday and Gene Upshaw. Look at this picture alone and tell me the head coach isn't excited. Yesterday it was like Upshaw leading the way for Marcus Allen, and you got to think like Josh McDaniels would be like, yes, establish the run game. And if there's one coach that might be able to take that to another level, it's Pete Carroll. One, because his energy levels are already bananas. But if you were to be like, hey, Pete, we're going to take prime Steve Hutchinson, plug him in at left guard, and see this picture of him leading the way for Sean Alexander? He's been doing the same thing for Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. How are you feeling? I legitimately think Pete Carroll would be bouncing off of walls due to his excitement. Plus guards, I think a spot where Seattle can actually get better. So maybe you go Walter Jones and figure out the tackle spot, or if they didn't go Devin Witherspoon, I'd probably go Richard Sherman here and move Kobe Bryant in the slot. And if they didn't go Jackson Smith-Njigba, I'd probably be going Steve Largent here to play the nickel. But they did address those positions. So I am taking the current roster into mind. Guard's a spot where I think they can get better, and Steve Hutchinson's one of the best guards in NFL history. And again, look at this picture and tell me Pete Carroll wouldn't be like, yeah, that's what I want. Run game. We're going to establish the run. Yes, we're going to run duo. Yes, this is the guy that helps us do that. Let's make the life of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet that much easier. We'll set up play action with Geno. We'll hit the deep ball to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. This all falls into place with what Pete Carroll would want to do. At least that's what I would think. If you're a Seahawks fan, definitely let me know. Would you stick with this pick, or are you going elsewhere? Last division to talk about, the NFC North. The Bears need defensive line depth. Richard Dent is one of the best pass rushers they have in franchise history, so pretty easy one for me. They did have this insane string of linebackers from Butkus to Singletary to Brian Urlacher, but they just signed TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, so decided to omit linebacker. They don't have a great quarterback I can drop on the roster. They don't have a lot of wide receiver talent to drop on the roster either. So maybe some offensive line depth, but decided to go with one of their best pass rushers they have in Richard Dent. Also thought about the fridge Refrigerator Perry, just to play that kind of 3-tech disruptor, body, huge body type that eats a bunch of space and stops the run, but decided to go with the more polished pass rusher with Richard Dent. The Lions, Megatron, easy, because I'm like, dude, I want this big body wide receiver. And, going back to my mock drafts leading up to the 2023 NFL draft, I was like, man, if they can get a Cedric Tillman or a Michael Wilson or one of these big body possession physical type of wide receivers, that feels like the one thing they're missing, because they got the speed specialist Jameson Williams, who can do a lot of other things, but you think about J-Mo, you think about his speed. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a great volume weapon who eats up underneath and can be that number one target share guy. But I'd be willing to change that if Megatron to this roster, because he's that big body, physical X type, but also can push, the ball deep down the field, can be that over-the-top threat. Could be a guy you just get the ball to and just let DB try to tackle 6'5", 220-plus pounds. Like, he could be your jack of all trades and do it from the outside, and then it's him, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, the speed threat on top of that. Oh my gosh. Now I just wish Calvin Johnson played basically 10 years later than he actually did, and currently played for this Lions team, because you had him, the wide receivers they already have. Wow, that would be a special offense, and on top of that, Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. Oh my God, that'd be must-watch TV. But that's the point of the video. That's the luxury of being able to add a legend to a current roster, right? Packers. I don't know. It's Greg Jennings. Like, if you're a Packers fan, do you consider him like a legend? Do you consider him one of the best of all time? He was one of the early Packers that I was like, dude, this guy's an absolute stud. So maybe it's just like my age kicking in here. But they have a handful of wide receivers you could pick from here. You could even say, like, hey, we're going to play Jordan Nelson as, like, this big body, like Alan Lazard upgrade as a big body physical slot. I'd be fine with that. Sterling Sharp, we're adding more speed. I'd be fine with that. I just have to go with Greg Jennings just because he's another route-running assassin, can be the number one volume guy in an offense, can win at a variety of levels, but also can be a little bit of a yak weapon as well. So I just think that if you added him to the current Green Bay wide receiver room, you could ask him to do anything you needed that given week, while also feeling comfortable with him being the number one target share guy, making Christian Watson this really interesting, explosive number two. Romeo Doubs, a guy that's getting number 3 matchups. He's already a really good route runner. He's just going to continue to get open. Now we're just going to clean up the drop. So, yeah, add one more wide receiver in the mix. Greg Jennings, to me, one of the best Packer wide receivers I've gotten to watch. So, again, if you're a Green Bay fan, would he be the wide receiver you add? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And then the last team, the Vikings, Alan Page. Again, it could have gone John Randall here, and there's probably a bunch of Vikings fans who are like, you're going to go D-line and not go John Randall. That's fair. I give that to you. I could easily go John Randall here. Alan Page is one of 2 defensive players to ever win MVP, though, so don't overlook Alan Page just because he played in the 70s. But Page or Randall, basically, that's what it came down to here, to fill up that interior defensive line that needs upgrades. I think Jaquelin Roy, as a day 3 rookie, is going to earn a starting spot. So if we could add a legend to that group, that'd be great. And Alan Page, Randall, both awesome pass rushers, did in a little bit of different ways, but a team that could use some extra pass rush certainly could use an upgrade there on the interior defensive line. Either one of those 2 guys would be slam dunks. And, there's other Vikings, of course, you could go with. Maybe you want to go quarterback Fran Tarkenton or something like that to get your long-term QB of the future. Sure, but I felt like that IDL needed some work. So Randall, Page, I'd be happy with either one. But, guys, that's going to do it for our series of adding a legend to all 32 teams. Today was the NFC video. Yesterday was the AFC side. Let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? And what would you change? And, of course, let me hear who your favorite team is and what legend you would want to add to your favorite squad's roster. Of course, I want to hear that thought down below in the comment section. And I read every comment. I respond to 90% of comments, so you're not going to waste your time by leaving your thoughts below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button. Seriously, it would help me out a ton if you did and enjoyed today's video. It helps the algorithm, makes this video out in front of other football fans, and makes the conversation that much more lively. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, want to see more football content like this. And of course, again, let me your thoughts down below in the comment section. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teej, and I am signing off.